Welcome to An Alternate Hugh. I'm Hugh Anderson, and this is what caught my attention recently. Saudi Arabia has pledged to invest some $600 billion in the United States. This is part of a charm offensive with the U.S., according to Axios. Ever the negotiator, President Trump suggested something closer to $1 trillion would be preferred. As you're planning your next vacation, be aware that for the first time in nearly a decade, Nepal has hiked the permit fee for climbing Mount Everest. If you want to summit the highest peak on Earth, you'll need to pony up $15,000, an increase of 36%. Each year, several hundred people attempt the ascent, which was first completed in 1953. And did you know the highest return on investment for a home improvement project is your garage? The return is 194% for updating it, according to the 2024 Cost versus Value report from industry tracker Zonda. You're welcome. Now, Wall Street Journal columnist Andy Kessler commented recently on a few of the biggest news items of late that don't involve elections. According to Kessler, GLP-1 drugs look to be the new aspirin. It's hard to find diseases they don't affect. So far, they've helped treat type 2 diabetes, obesity, stroke, heart attack, sleep apnea, kidney disease, and substance addiction. And there are hints these drugs may reduce the risk of colorectal, pancreatic, and endometrial cancers. In December, a preliminary Cornell College of Business paper reported that GLP-1 using households spend 6% less on groceries within 6 months, while spending on chips, sweet bakery goods, and cookies dropped up to 11%. Now, these drugs are still expensive, but they'll surely change long-term healthcare spending. Kessler also wants to know if the AI hype is beginning to wane. Usage prices are dropping and NVIDIA GPU chips are showing up on eBay. Without using the fastest NVIDIA chips, a Chinese AI model, DeepSeek, spent about $5.5 million, which is cheap, and in 2 months almost matched the OpenAI 1 model's performance, which is fast. Now the robots are coming. Operating costs for a robot could eventually drop to under $1 an hour, and that's how manufacturing returns to the U.S., according to Kessler. And U.S. and European stock market capitalizations were comparable at the end of 2009. Now estimates show that the U.S. market is more than 3 times the size of Europe's. Innovation is working. Now, believe it or not, the best performing sector during President Biden's administration has been, wait for it, energy, and by a wide margin. The war between Ukraine and Russia, relatively strong economic growth, and a higher regulatory or a tighter regulatory regime on the industry no doubt contributed to energy's outperformance in the past 4 years. And despite this relative strength, the entire energy sector's weight in the S&P 500 is about half of the biggest technology stocks in the index. I'm sure you can guess which ones. To the extent to which we may be on the dawn of a new industrial revolution driven by artificial intelligence, there will be significantly greater demand for electricity production, especially when one considers cryptocurrency mining in the U.S. and greater living standards abroad. As it stands now, almost 80% of America's electricity generation is driven by fossil fuels. It seems clear that the incoming Trump administration will encourage ever greater oil production. We'll find out how that squares with the sector's relatively newfound capital discipline. And speaking of oil, here's some recent observations from oil analyst Mike Rothman. With the price of a barrel of crude currently trading in the mid-70s, Rothman contends fair value is $90. Inventories have been getting drawn down for 4 years straight, and although Saudi Arabia can still get oil out of the ground at roughly relatively cheaply to other countries, they need $107 a barrel to balance their fiscal obligations. A lot of those princes have big allowances. And when it comes to drill baby drill, there are a few things to consider. The miracle of shale has probably seen peak production. Drilled but not completed wells which benefited by efficiency gains are now being slowly depleted. The U.S. is the largest producer of oil, but also the second largest importer because our refineries need different types of crude to process. And a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico would translate to about a 40 to 45 cent per gallon increase at the pump for U.S. consumers. Now, demand remains strong with 2025 air traffic looking solid, and 2024 came in stronger than expected. And a big story is the emerging economies around the world is hard to account for or forecast, and many analysts only focus on India and China, but the growth now coming from many other places is substantial. And a sustainable oil replacement is very unlikely in the future, in the near future especially. The bottom line, Oil remains a critical resource for the foreseeable future, and the persistent demand for it will continue to support prices. Industry capital discipline has kept companies from getting overzealous in their operations and may smooth out the boom-bust cycles of the past. We shall see. So that's a wrap. If you hop over to the Hightower Las Vegas website, you'll find the latest edition of the Community Spotlight series, where my colleague Shelby Sutter sits down with Kara Clark, Executive Director of the Vegas Chamber Leadership Foundation, to discuss the Leadership Las Vegas program and how it's connecting leaders within our community to propel our city forward. Until next time, I'm Hugh Anderson, and this has been An Alternate Hugh.